Hello, everybody. I can start greeting you all while people are arriving. So, hi, Joseph. Hi, Praveen. Hi, Rafael. Rafael de la Torre. Here you are. But we'll give people a little bit more time. Hello, Charles. Hello, Greg. And I will start from sharing the screen and giving you the link, the only one that you need. So, here's my screen share. There you are. And the link that you need is this one. Okay. And I'm giving you the bit.ly link so that you can type it if that doesn't open, even though it always did so far. And there's the chat, which I will try to keep up. Okay. So addressing it to everyone, here is the link. Now, for those people who are new, maybe there are not that many new people. Hello from Santiago, Chile. By the way, that's a very good idea. So hello from Houston, Texas. And you can do the same thing. And then we will be like a group of people who are all saying hello. And what we're going to look at today is this. We have a superhuman performance, and I'm not joking. That is an interesting thing. I will show you that. Okay, Greg and Charles from Austin. Okay, but also what I plan to do is, by the way, before I plan to do is let me show you, if you are the first time here, you will see the most useful here is this learning path. So let me open that learning path right here, also called AI education, which is all the things that we touch upon, all the things that somebody else, usually, let's acknowledge that it's under AIM, gives us the course. Now, what you have here is quick name for that, then what it is about, then a course that you can open. So sometimes it's on YouTube, as you can see, but mostly it's on deep learning. For that, I believe you may need a subscription. But then after that, I have my repository. So that's an open repository. It's grown pretty large by now because what you can learn is about 100 different courses. Let's look at the latest. Reinforcement fine-tuning LLMs with GRPO. We looked at it yesterday. It's pretty base, and it is what if you want your own model, and what if you want your own model fine-tuned. So that's one of the approaches. That's where they come in. There was also agentic AI with Java, but okay, we will not say what I said last time. That's the whole story. You see almost 100, and all of them are new. All of them don't intersect with the other ones. So it's a lot of fun thing to learn. So my practical observation is that people who were looking at that, and I mean my trainers, I think they're not here on the webinar, but I'll tell you that somehow every one of those courses is okay, simple by itself. But altogether, especially when you are faced with I need to know it and I need to learn it, I think it looks a little bit intimidating to the trainers. Shouldn't be hard, but it is a little bit. And I think one of the reasons why it is a little bit hard is because it's just going on an ever increasing acceleration. You get more and more to know all the time. That is, I think, what gets people a little bit tense. Nevertheless, we are moving on, and I have more and more trainers who are working with me on the AI and we grab any course because we need to get up to speed with the other traders. I'm kind of saying that I am up to speed, but no, that's not what I mean. I mean that when you're new, it's a lot to learn, and we will teach even for one person when that comes from our channels, just to make comfortable. That's what it is, that's the story, but today we're not going to talk about that, so I'm closing this, and I will first of all show you a paper. That is an interesting. Now, AI is the subject of breakfast conversation every time, at least at my breakfast table with my wife. And she sent me that article that she also got from her friend. So, superhuman performance. I think that's the most essential part is the title. Let me show you what it is about. I'm going there, okay? You can also go there. I don't need to give you any links because it's there. But let's go to the to PDF. Right here it says view PDF, and that's very, very tiny script. Let's try to make it bigger. Okay, that worked. So superhuman performance. Well, that is just a way to attract your attention, but it is superhuman. What I mean is this. They start with a well-known approach, well-known way of measuring performance before even there were models which performance you wanted to measure. So that's very good to have some kind of methodology and approach to measure something before you had what to measure, because now nobody can say that you invented this specifically so that you would come out on top according to this. No, it was from the 50s. All right. So we have the idea, and that's a very simple but important idea. So if you have a lot of experts, okay, and these are all the experts here, but they deal with hundreds. And as you can see, this mythology was seminal paper, which means the seed giving paper by Ledley and Lusted. They are from 59, and if you stack up your agent, that's what we're doing here, AI, against a large group of professionals, then if your AI is good enough in if it stands out even in a group of professionals, then we can call it superhuman. Now, what's important to me is that usually people say a thing that it is obvious to them. What is obvious to them is that we're learning from the experts. We know what the experts say, and we cannot be better than experts because who is to say, am I right or am I wrong? That's experts, and they disagree between themselves. So therefore, very clear conclusion, you cannot even be better than humans. Well, that right here says yes, you can. That's a superhuman claim. Why? So, of course, that's the idea. You have your humanity, but the humanity is not the same. It's composed of different people. Some have more official weight, some less, and if you're on top of the official best, you can even call it superhuman because humans make mistakes. And here you have something that doesn't. That to me is the most important, but let's go a little bit further and you can read it for yourself. You will see how they evaluated models, and the model seems to be doing better than any human in the world. What are the models doing? Here they are diagnosticians. They are physicians who are used for triage. That's the word that is used in the clinical situation. Whom do we assist first in the emergency room? And that's very, very important, obviously, thing. And we have a model that can potentially save lives very well, better than humans. Well, that's to me what is really interesting. The rest, of course, they are just using ChatGPT and then measuring performance in the right situation. So that was the most important part. You can read the rest. Let's see in the chat while I'm talking. Okay, Paul says AI can be better than any individual and can match a committee because the committee is the source of training data. Right, Paul. I agree. In other words, now that you have the results, okay, I got the results, I see it's doing well. Haha, now I can explain why it is doing well, and in fact, superhuman. So what's my explanation? Well, because it learns from everybody, and if it learns from everybody, it can potentially be better than everybody. Yes, I agree. In other words, that logic that says you cannot even measure is it better than human or no, because you who measures humans? Well, that's a good argument until you have this idea that oh, they can be better than human, and then you find an explanation for that too. And now your explanation is that well, because it knows everything, it can be better. That reminds me of a famous Russian Jewish physicist by the name of Landau. So they caught up with him and they showed the results of some physical experiment. And he explained why the curve went this way and why it didn't go the other way. And then they caught again up with him and they sort of made a mistake. What I showed you was the chart upside down. Actually, the results are totally the opposite. And that is exactly what he then explained. He said, oh, yeah, I see. Kind of like ChatGPT never hesitates. He said, oh, the reason the results it went down or that is because of that. All right. Now, that is all I wanted to say about this. Greg says an interesting uh, video with self-improving AI. I think that is very, very interesting. So let's do that. Let us copy that. Okay. And let us put it here because that disappears after the webinar. Let's put it here as a potential subject of the next discussion. Let us copy this session that we are preparing for right here. And let's say that will be the next one. All right. But let's go back to what I really wanted to show. Codex. Last time I said, look, this is a great, or supposedly a great new thing, and it is with Codex. I'm writing code, so I'll tell you, I promised I'll work on it some more. I did work on it some more, and I started with my application. Okay, let me show my application that I have. It's on Git. It's open. It's under my name, and it's called Moses AI. Well, it's my thing. I like to do things like study the Talmud, but what I've done is I've taken 3,000 pages of the Talmud, summarized them. So where I go is to Talmud Eliminated, and that is my project. That all writing is actually mine. So if you go to the first tractate, there will be 64 pages. Since it happens that the Talmud starts from page 2, then really there are not 64 but 63 pages. Each of them is a very short summary, very concise. So it is for anybody who wants to know what it was about. But it also has an illustration. This is Van Gogh, Poor Peasants at a Mill. And that is because the text is about, let's say, it's probably about when they come for the evening meal. All right. I took that, I scraped that. Actually, I construct the sides, so it's all there. And then I feed this into the reg model. This is what this is doing. This is doing a simple rag application on top of my specific text. I found, where are my notebooks? Here. I found that if I train it on a specific body of text, hello everybody. Okay, so if I train it on a specifically defined body of text, it actually performs better than if you just go to ChatGPT. No doubt, ChatGPT can talk about anything, and no doubt it knows everything. That's great. But because it knows everything, it knows a big bunch of what I would call junk. Also, well, there are different kinds of opinions, right? So some opinions will be following their own approach and philosophy. Let me give some inoffensive example. So there is a movie by Woody Allen. In that movie, people in the future discover that the best healthy food is hamburgers and potato chips. And that's what is healthy, the rest is not. So that is a good approach, but let's assume that no. I'll tell you, Lance, how I train in a second, but back to Woody Allen's movie, I think it's called All You Wanted to Know About Sex, but Were Afraid to Ask. So in there, they have the future in which everybody knows that the really good food is hamburgers and potato chips. That's one philosophy. So if you were training AI on everything, it would include that philosophy also. There may be some more scientific ground philosophy where it's not, and you would get a mix of all the opinions. If you train it on a specific, consistent body of text, you'll get an expert in just that area. That's my approach, but regardless, it's also my sample rag. So what I do, and it's right here, is first of all, I had to resurrect the version from 2 years ago, and I couldn't. ChatGPT or no GPT, everybody was confused. So I restarted. It's anyway based on Pinecone. What I do is a standard rag idea where you take your text, takes your pages of text, and they're all fine right here. In data, in pages, you have it here, and that will be a lot. Okay, there you are. I think it's 3,000 pages and 7,000 paragraphs. Okay, so you take all of that, and I'm still not sure who should divide the pages into paragraphs, but somebody should. So either it's my scraping application or it's the Python. ChatGPT thinks it's better should be Python here. So in any case, you take the text, you break it into paragraphs, and that's where you have freedom. What exactly is your breaking into paragraphs rules? That's not obvious at all. So here is where you choose it, you select it, and in the end, you take these. Now, that's an example that Pinecone gave me. You take some phrases and stick them in. But then I do the next step and I ask ChatGPT, okay, good, that worked. Now I want to take my text, take it out of data. All right, it did that. It said, it gave me the code. I made sure that it works. I had to do a few tweaks. It's not obvious again right away, but you break it into paragraphs and stick it into, you have 3,000 paragraph records. Oh, not quite. And you put it into Pinecone. After you have it in Pinecone, you can have what you call context. And the context means that that's what is related. For example, they had the question, famous historical structures and monuments. Good. I replaced it with my question. And the first step in RAG is where you ask a question and get the most relevant pieces. So it got the most relevant pieces. How many of them? 1, 2, but you control that. So it got 3, I think even 4 relevant pieces. Then, and I haven't completed that, then you send it to the movie Sleeper. Smoking was also healthy. So you get my example, thanks. Okay, then I do something more advanced, re-ranked. That is the idea that you can adjust. I don't quite understand how do they re-rank, but the idea is that that will improve the reg idea a little bit. Because think of it, the reg idea is based on 2013 technology. It's old. It's not perfect. And AI is 2023 technology, and it's much better. So why do you mix the two? Okay, so that one idea is let's improve the first one. Let's improve that and do re-ranking. In any case, however you do it, it will be reasonable. It will be relevant to what you asked. From that, that's what you send to AI. You send it to AI. I still have to figure out what to do with the art illustrations. Can I make them part of the search? So there is more you can do. But my next steps, okay, all of that I did together with ChatGPT. And every time that I was asking, hey, GPT, how about we invite Codex to the party? I found an amazing thing. ChatGPT didn't want Codex. Now, ChatGPT knows full well that Codex is from the same company. It didn't want it. He said, you know, Mark, you are working on architecture, and at this time I'm much better than Codex. So you will only go to Codex when it is time and when you have specific tasks. That was very interesting. It was jealous. Now, joke, okay, but it looked and sounded jealous. Nevertheless, I did go to Codex. Now, how do you go to Codex? Let me show you. You open ChatGPT and do /Codex. Okay. Now, in Codex, you create what they call an environment. And I believe that this is an environment that you need to create for each project individual. That makes sense. So an environment, in my mind at least, corresponds to each specific project I'm working on. So I started with this, Freed, but I found out that it's just too hard for it. And for me. So start small. And I started with Moses AI, which essentially is one notebook, but not that easy. So I looked at that and it told me, Mark, you know what? Your structure is incorrect. You are pretty bad designing in Python. What you should do is this. You should have the source where you should have all additional functions. Put them in a separate place. All right, I did that. And then you should have notebooks in their own directory. And since I'm running through notebooks non-stop, then I have a whole big archive of all of my attempts. All right, I don't throw them away, but they are needed. So that's what I got together with ChatGPT by constantly interacting. That's what I find in my practice the best. But regardless, Codex. So in Codex, I gave it access to my repository, and I don't see how you can easily remember what happened. So I prepared snapshots for you and gave it the secrets. That was nice. The secrets meaning the keys that you don't want in the open. So it's pretty much the same idea as what you have in GitHub, because you can give it the secret keys over there. And I said, okay, let's start. I have a notebook. That notebook does the first step of RAG, so give me the second step of RAG, right? Would make sense. And this is what happened. I had to make snapshots as it was moving. So it started by saying, I'm running the setup. Why is it running the setup? It's because it's creating its own little Docker. In this Docker, it runs the requirements. That's what it runs. And it also uses the keys. Okay, you would expect that to happen. Next. executing Python. So now I think it really executes that. It should work for it because I know it works for me, but that's a sanity check. The next step is I'm reading your notebook. Well, I think at this point you realize that you are getting used to its behavior. It's not obvious. Nobody knows a priori what will happen. And that's what the designers initially said. They said, we know it's bad at math, but we want it to learn rather than we will tell it the answer. So we begin to see what it's doing. It was an inspiration for me, even on the previous step. When I saw that it was telling me, oh, I'm running code, I'm running this Python, that's exactly when I understood we can work together. Okay, I will quickly look at your comments as we go. Good question. Good, you look at it. Right, I did not use an embedding by itself. Usually people use the embedding model that comes from, let's say, OpenAI. But by now, Pinecone implemented their own embedding that they have hidden. So in the end, that becomes the recommended practice. At least that's the very first thing they give you in the quick start, because that requires less from you. So the embedding really is present. It is there, except that they take care of the embedding. I hope, Lance, that was your question. Okay, so it was reading my notebook. Then it said, okay, let me check on Git. What's new is there? That's because the agent sends uh, sends updates to Git. What it's supposed to do is give you a pull request, PR as they call it. Well, I'm not sure if that happened. Let's continue. Okay, so it again checks the requirements. Then it again checks the Git. Now it wants to see what's the difference between what it says and what I say. All right, makes sense. So you would expect a PR. Committing changes. Well, good question. I'm not sure where it is committing them. Maybe you will help me with that. Now, this time it's one of the most really seminar approaches. I hope you'll come with something because I got stuck or stopped here. That's what I got. So it seems that it did do something. Maybe somewhere there is a pull request hiding. I couldn't find it. So far, so good. Something happened, something worked. The magic is supposed to happen. ChatGPT of the opinion that I should not use Codex, and I just couldn't make it agree to that. Sounds like a menage a trois, but let's go there. So here we are. This is the repository, right? Let's go to the repository itself. And where did we see pull requests? So no pull requests. Amazing. I probably don't look at something correctly. No pull requests. Issues, these are my issues from before. So that's what I kind of got stuck. So at this point, I realized that perhaps ChatGPT was right. Maybe the miracle still doesn't work correctly, and I need to keep asking ChatGPT for the code, which works wonderfully well. But what is needed is nothing. I mean, to start, there are no prerequisites. It works. I think I do have the $200 a month subscription. That is a prerequisite, but that's not a very high bar to jump. Okay, and now I showed you that kind of the answer. You can start, it will be creating your Docker. So make sure it can run in Docker and make sure it is not something too complex. So far it worked. But exactly how do I pull the changes in? That I still don't know. Now, where did I see? Oh, it was here in Codex, right? Right here. That's why I saw it. Okay. So archive task, no, I don't want it, but I want to see what's here. So let's go. Okay, supposedly, I think it even shows me the differences. The difference between what and what, I wasn't sure. Also, the differences in Gitmark on notebook are not very helpful. Right. It would be better if that was the plain text. And maybe that's what I should do, switch to just Python, just because of a technical idea that it's hard to work on the notebook level. It also mentions, Mark, you're bad at testing. Where are your tests? And that I humbly acknowledge that I'm bad at tests. And not only that, it teaches me how to structure stuff. Okay, now I see some of the reactions. I'm opening them to read. Okay. Committing usually means commit to the local Git repository. Yes, but how does it know what I did in my local Git repository? Okay, a PR means it should be already pushed. I agree. I just cannot find it, right? And it should be able to write some tests. Yes, it should be. But of course, at least I should ask it to do that. All right. The continuation is that I asked a friend programmer, he jumped on that. Well, we didn't continue because I said, oh, it's easy. I'll finish it up myself. Maybe I'll invite him and we'll try to continue. But that's what I promised. So I would say 50% of what is promised is delivered by now. You see how it works. You see what you need to do and you see what problems are there to solve. So the conclusion at this moment, Codex indeed is not perfect. And here I have to agree with ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is much better. So step by step, piece of the code by piece of the code that works. And that gives me marked improvements in the coding. Also teaches me how to understand and how to architect correctly. I have to say I'm a good student. I'm learning from that. It always asks me, did you do it right? I ask it, why did you do that? So it works. It's very fruitful cooperation. Done. Coming up for breath. All right. Go to GitHub and look at branches tags. I will. I'm not going to start debugging this right now because it probably will take time. But I do this. I will take all of your advice. Now, for that, maybe I'll try to copy everything. No, it doesn't work. Well, I'll try to preserve those messages somehow. Preserve our chat. Really, this is precious advice. Let me do this. Just at least let's make a screenshot. At the very least. I did try to download the text. It didn't. So not everything in the world is perfect. But right now, so far so good. I'm going back to where we are here. And that's what I promised. A story of how I worked with it. Now, what I'm planning to do is summarize and polish these discussions because that stays in the movie. That stays in our recording. That's not good enough. And even if I ask AI to summarize it, it will be not what you want at all. But I will write it. So I promise that. Who knows if I really do it? I hope I will. But there will be a blog. That's pretty much what I wanted to say for today. So even if we reserve an hour in our mind, but it really is not quite. I think that is where we stand right now. I can tell you just on a personal level that new requests for AI courses are just pouring in. Uh, that's not to make anybody envious because they are not very profitable at all. They may be one student, but they usually want this. They want our standard how do you build AI apps. For that, this is what they get. We have a repository, and right now it's even open. Usually I open it only for the class, but as you can see, it's open right now. I will give that to you because that's not anywhere. So I'll give it to you on chat. Trying to make the chat window very small, but it's hard. Okay. All right. So what they get is this. They get the introduction to prompting, but that introduction is, of course, through scripting and not through just blah, blah. Okay. Then they get to talk to the data, that's database agent. Then there is more agentic constructions with serverless. And then it depends what's next. And then in each course, they usually need all of that. That is a must. You need to be fluent on that. And okay, you guys here who is present, you guys of course know that. It's kind of a standard RAG architecture, something else. But in addition, they want something else. They say, well, I am an educational institution. Is there anything for me? And I give them 3 days of the AI introduction and then 1 more day for educational institutions. Right now, I already have for educational institutions, for pharmacy, for quality control on pharmacy, and recently came up something about agentic. We know agentic, we need more. So that's what's going on in my life. So it took 2 years. In March 2023, there was this. Okay, without the emotional context, there was an announcement of AI can work. And now, 2 years later, it's coming through the training channels. And that's what I wanted to tell you. So I'm really, really grateful for your guys' comments. And I want to pay attention to the chat right now. Okay. So, question. Steve asks, would you please give us the top link at the page for this group? Yes, I showed it in the beginning, so let me walk through what I was showing. First of all, this is that one. That's the link. So the basic link, Advances in AI, and I'm giving it to you on the chat here. I hope that is what you asked. Now, that is really the only link that you need because everything that happens after that, you just click there and everything else is linked and you can get to there. One thing that I showed you that was of interest is this repository that is usually my starting point when I'm teaching people what to do. I start from that, but then I add a day or two for their specific vertical interest. So that's the only one that I did not give it to you, but I'm giving it to you here. And I'm saying that it is right here. Okay. I will say it's a regular AI built-in course. Okay. The word course is extra. Now, I don't promise that that will be open forever. So if you're interested, then just make link, I mean, download, clone that. All right. I hope I covered some of the material. So thank you very, very much. Be well. Be well and have a great weekend and a great year to come. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. You are great guys. Really, the saying goes that I learn much more from my students than from my teachers. That is the case. Thank you very much again. Oh, by the way, the book AI and Security is moving. It's limping, but it's moving. I have one more author who promised to write one of the first three sections, and I write the first two, and together we'll have the first chapter out. And they like this early publication and packed as everybody probably does. Okay, you're saying there is a pull request button in the toolbar of GitHub. That is, you're saying probably here, right? Pull request, yes. Pull requests, yes. And if I go there, there's don't see anything. I know there is another button, form a pull request. Well, I would say they need to clean up their act, the Codex guys, but I'm sure it will come. And I know the competition also is on that. On that, Google has a competing product, and I think everybody else, Claude probably does. So that's the next week. The next week we are going to continue. I will even put it here. We'll say that one more. Okay. Again, thank you very, very much. Be well and all the best. Is there a link for my book? No, right now I'm sorry to say that that is all in hidden repositories, but it will be as soon as we finish the very first chapter, it will be unpacked, and there at least you will be able to see the first chapter. But we'll be talking more about the books. Yes, everything that you see, you can share. All right. Thank you very much. All the best. Goodbye.